With me right now to expand on this, to react, is Senator Tom Cotton, who fights wars. He was in the infantry, fought in Afghanistan, is currently on the Senate Armed Services Committee. Senator, what's wrong with winning?
Brian, nothing is wrong with winning. And to continue your Rocky metaphor, the Russian army has proven itself to be far from Ivan Drago, and the Ukrainian army has proven itself to be ferocious and brave in defense of its own nation. Unfortunately, it does seem like President Biden has banished the words win and victory from his vocabulary, but that's exactly what President Zelensky and the Ukrainian army may be able to pull off in this war if we do provide them those weapons as rapidly as possible, if we get past these legalistic distinctions about offensive or defensive weapons. Brian, Russia invaded Ukraine. Ukraine is defending its homeland. Every weapon that Ukraine has is a defensive weapon against this Russian war of aggression.
Senator, I'm tired of hearing about S-300s. We're going to give it to them. I'm tired of hearing about we're going to get them all the weapons they need to be successful. They're not getting in, let alone the MiGs. So the S-300s are where? And what do you understand is holding up the Russian defensive system that would have been effective maybe to stop the bombing in Lviv?
Brian, S-300s are a former Warsaw Pact air defense system that some of our NATO members in Eastern Europe have. They would be happy to provide those systems to Ukraine. They want assurances from our government that we can provide them other air defense systems like Patriot systems. I'm not sure they're getting those assurances. Another example of the Biden administration dragging its feet are the Switchblade drones, a one-way suicide drone, if you will. These have proven very effective in combat. They were promised to Ukraine almost 2 weeks ago. The Department of Defense announced just a couple days ago they still weren't there. They should have been there the day after it was announced. This is just one more example, Brian, of the kind of weapons that Ukraine needs, and the administration seems to be finding every reason in the world to drag its feet or even outright deny the delivery of those weapons.
This is the most impactful trip of the history of President Biden's not only presidency but of his career. He's over there trying to reassure NATO, a series of conferences, EU, G7, NATO, got it. He's made 3 gaffes, which needed to be clarified by his own staff. This is the biggest, after what I thought was a very good speech. Listen.
We will have a different future, a brighter future, rooted in democracy and principles, hope and light, of decency and dignity, of freedom and possibilities. For God's sake, this man cannot remain in power.
I agree, but his staff didn't. Who was right? President Biden for ad-libbing that line, apparently, or for his staff for walking it back?
Well, Brian, what definitely wasn't right is to have the combination of the two. President Biden seemed to ad-lib there. He said something that Vladimir Putin will now use as for his own reasons to say, see, I told you all along that the United States and NATO wants to attack Russia, wants to topple our government. Yet then his staff immediately turned around and walked it back. So you get the worst of all possible worlds. Unfortunately, this is fairly common with Joe Biden, is that he makes these statements, they have an effect in the world, then the staff immediately walks them back, and that has an effect in the world as well. It is not reassuring for our safety or to our allies.
Senator, it's been a long time since I remember Democratic senators as focused as you are in agreement like you are, and many of you, like Lindsey Graham, are, that we need to help out Ukraine more. But I think we have to credit President Zelensky for that. He has talked past the leaders to the parliament who represent the people. That is why, in a latest Fox poll, over 60% of the country thinks we're not doing enough. How much credit does Zelensky deserve? Am I overstating it?
Not at all, Brian. I would add, in addition to President Zelensky, it's the Ukrainian army and the Ukrainian people who deserve this credit. In no small part, they shamed the Western world into supporting them after the first 4 or 5 days of this war, Brian. You recall when President Putin gave that speech about Donetsk and Luhansk province on President's Day, we actually slapped sanctions on those provinces, on Ukraine, not on Russia. 2 days later, when he invaded, they were very weak, very milquetoast steps. And that's because Joe Biden and most Western leaders thought that Kyiv and the Ukrainian government would fall in a matter of days. When they didn't, when they held out fighting through that first weekend, when President Zelensky kept posting all those videos, it really did shame Western leaders into taking the actions that we should have been taking months ago, sending Ukraine Javelin missiles and other anti-tank missiles, Stinger aircraft missiles. We're still not doing everything we could do. We still could be sending them those S-300 systems to protect their airspace, for instance, or Harpoon anti-ship missiles, coastal batteries that could destroy Russian ships just like they did the other day with one ballistic missile. These things should have been happening months ago, but it was really the bravery and the skill of the Ukrainian army and the leadership of President Zelensky that forced the hand of Western leaders, to include Joe Biden, to finally do what we should have done months ago.
And if you want to stop this horrible regime from spreading that Russian culture, not what their traditions are, but what their government is, stop them in Ukraine. It'll save the Baltics. It'll save Poland, save the surrounding area, and a big headache. And if they take troops out of Georgia to help out in the Ukraine, Georgia should go take back those provinces they lost in 2008. Senator, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, Brian.
All right.